Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Afterthought, where we talk all things mental health and real life. Tonight, we are talking about languishing. What in the world is languishing? We're going to be getting into it. Have you all been feeling just blah? Have you been feeling a bit run down? Can't find your happiness? You know you're not quite depressed. You know you're not really feeling like you need to see a therapist just yet, but you're just not feeling yourself. What is that mood all about? So we're going to be getting into it tonight, and I must admit that tonight is going to be a little bit shorter than usual because I feel like I'm languishing myself. And so we're going to have a bit of a talk, and then I am going to indulge in some self-care too. But tonight, let's get into why it is that we're feeling this way. So my name is Roxanne Francis. I am the operator and owner of Francis Psychotherapy and Consulting Services in Toronto, Canada. If you are new to me, jump on in, tell me your name and where you're from. I want to see where you're hailing from. But outside of that, how have you been feeling? How have you been feeling in this month 14 or 1400 of this pandemic? Let me just turn my music down. A lot of people have been saying to me that they have kind of been managing okay, but as the months and months wear on, they're not doing very well. A lot of people have admitted that they just don't feel so great. And it's funny, on Monday, I was talking to one of my coaches. Her name is Monique Bryan. Hit her up if you're familiar. If you're not, Monique Bryan _co. We were just talking about why it is that we're having this yucky feeling where you're not feeling very happy, but you're not quite depressed. You know you're not thriving. There's this in-between space where we're hanging in this gray zone, this weird mental health kind of purgatory where you don't even know how you feel. You just feel stuck. And you're not feeling productive. You're not feeling motivated. You're not feeling like your regular energetic self, or you're not able or likely to do the things that used to bring you joy. But you know you're not quite depressed yet, right? What's that weird feeling? Well, there is, this word languish, the word to languish has been around for some time, but it's fairly new to the mental health space. And there was an author, I can't remember his name right now, who did an article for the New York Times a couple weeks ago, and he talked about the idea of languishing, where we are not quite flourishing, where we're not feeling very motivated, where we are stuck. And, this is a result really of the length of this pandemic. I saw a newsreel the other day that talked about, people were talking about how they felt during this pandemic, and some people said, I feel like it's the same song on repeat over and over. Another person said that they felt like they were on a bit of a treadmill to nowhere. Hey, Angela. People were saying that they felt like they were on a bit of a treadmill to nowhere. One person said, work, pay bills, sleep, repeat. And this idea of just going on and on and on and on again is really wearing on people. For some people who are now parenting at home because schools are shut down, like myself here, going crazy. Not quite going crazy, but it's taxing. And so it's hard. You are trying to make yourself productive day in and day out. So how do we manage this feeling of languishing? First of all, we need to acknowledge it. I hope that the time is now gone where we feel like we have to say that we're fine when someone asks you, how are you doing? Let's get past that. Let's get over that and just really share how it is that we're doing. We have to be able to recognize and name how it is that we're feeling in order to address it. So I think that this whole idea of everyone being in the same scenario, everyone's household situation is not the same, but everyone's scenario in that everyone is experiencing this pandemic at the same time. And so we're familiar with this feeling of, I can't believe I'm still stuck in the house. We're familiar with this feeling of, I cannot believe, I can't go to a birthday party with my friends, or I can't believe that we can't go out for dinner and hang out or have people over, or, go out together. We can't do those things. We can't go to the rec center. We can't go swimming. We can't do a lot of those things because everything's shut down. And so people are familiar with feeling stuck and feeling frustrated. So when someone asks you, how are you doing? It is totally okay to say, man, I can't. I just can't handle this. It's totally okay to say, I am not feeling all right. And on top of that, a lot of people are dealing with other daily life stressors on top of this ongoing state of not doing well. People are dealing with medical situations. People are dealing with relationship situations. I know people who've lost parents in this pandemic as a result of COVID-19 and other things. And so there are all these things that that impact us and how we're dealing with this pandemic. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we are also dealing with what can be considered grief. And many of us think that grief is only connected to losing a loved one or the loss of life, or a loved one who's lost their lives. But grief is also connected to, yes, we are all in different stages of grief, Shayla. Grief is associated with the loss of life that you knew, the loss of the life that you knew, right? So if we've had to change things drastically, and for most of us, we've had to change things drastically because of this pandemic. Many of us lost our jobs. Children lost the way that they learn. Some of us lost our offices and now we're working at home. We've lost our sense of safety or a sense of being carefree, or sense of freedom, or a sense of spontaneity. These things have shifted and our lives are vastly different. And so there is this sense of grief. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is that there is this dichotomy of feeling, this dichotomy of having two feelings, right? As I was mentioning to my friend Monique on Monday, that it is like having, being grateful that you had loving parents who raised you, but being annoyed or being upset because your parents were never around because they were always working. And it's okay to have both feelings at the same time. And in the same way, it's okay to be thankful that you are healthy, or that someone in your family has survived COVID-19. You're thankful that you have a roof over your head. You're thankful that you have clothes on your back. You're thankful that your children are well. But at the same time, you can be really angry or frustrated or annoyed that you're stuck at home, that this is not going well, that homeschooling your children is the hardest thing you've ever done, that it's really difficult to work a full-time job at home while you're trying to ensure that your child gets an education. It's okay to feel grateful that, you have technology that your child can learn on at home, but really frustrated that they seem to be falling behind because of how the learning has been. So it's okay to feel them both. What happens is that we live in a society that says, if you have all of these things, if you have positive things going for you, then you cannot complain. And what happens is that people feel like they don't have the permission to complain, or they feel like they are complaining too much if they say, this is not an ideal situation for me, or that they're somehow ungrateful if they say, this is not working for me. The truth of the matter is, you're not ungrateful, but you're being realistic. It is okay to be grateful and be frustrated at the same time. We are human beings. We don't live single issue lives, and we don't have single issue problems. Things are complex. And so if you're feeling confused, welcome to the club. Most of us feel the same way. If you are happy 1 minute and then you're frustrated the next minute, welcome to the club. Most of us are feeling that way. If you don't know what to do about it, most people are feeling that way. But here's what I suggest that you do about this. I think it's really, really important to shake things up as much as you can. They say if you want a different result, you have to do something that you've never done. So if you are a homebody and you're sitting at home and you haven't gone outside in the past 4 days, guess what? It's time to get up and go outside and take a walk. Even if it's cool, put on a sweater, put on a jacket, and go for a walk. If you have been indoors all winter and now it's springtime, go outside. If you have a yard, get your hands in the dirt and plant something in the soil. It is going to change your perspective on certain things. It is not going to make things right, and your life isn't going to go back to normal just because you're gardening, but it is going to help shift your perspective. Vanessa said, yep, I feel I'm introverted now. I lost my extrovert side. Yes, that happens when you're stuck inside all the time. That's the other thing. That's the reason why I want people to get up and go outside and go for walks and breathe the fresh air and garden and listen to the birds and feel the wind against their face, because we're spending so much time indoors that my concern is that when this is over, we're all going to become reclusive, and we're all going to, well, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us will not want to go outside. Hey, Wendy. People will feel like they will be afraid when this is all over. Am I going to get sick? What's going to happen? I encourage us to do what we can to get our bodies moving, connect with people as best as you can. And I know lots of people have been talking about doing stuff like this, but we talk about it because it is really, really important. That inside feeling of gray, that inside feeling of blah that you've been feeling, that languishing state where you feel like you're going up this never-ending escalator. You're putting one foot forward one day at a time, but you're not really getting anywhere. It can be really, really frustrating. And that feeling that you have in the pit of your stomach, it is real. It is like we're burning. It's like we're not burning out, but we're really burning out, right? And there's this phrase that I came upon the other day when I was reading called brown out, where burnout is a little bit more obvious, but brownout is a little bit more subtle. And I think that's what we're talking about when I say things like languishing. Hey, Osana, it's really, really challenging to get yourself going. So what can you do to shake things up? Put some music on, turn it on really loudly, have yourself a dance party. Maybe even go to bed early if you can. Get up really early in the morning and do something that moves your body. Do some yoga. Sign up for MomFest. That's happening next week, right? Go to momfest.ca and get yourself a ticket. If you're a mom and you're struggling, we're going to be talking about all the things like toxic positivity, how to take care of your body, how to take care of your soul. If you are someone where faith is important to you, then read a scripture, say a prayer, meditate on the word, do what it is that works for you to get yourself out of this rut. A client said to me a long time ago that the only difference between a rut and a grave is the depth. And I feel like that's what's happening in this pandemic. We're not necessarily in a grave, but we're definitely in a rut. It might not be extremely deep, but we're stuck there. And we have got to get ourselves out in order to save our mental health. We have to get ourselves out. Do we have someone that we can talk to when things are going sideways? What's going on when, you've lost a relative or a close friend who has succumbed to an illness, whether or not it's COVID-19 or something else, someone who's died suddenly? Who do we connect with when these things are happening? Because even though we're in the middle of this pandemic, life is still happening. We're still getting diagnosed with challenging things. People are still struggling with work. Our children are still trying to give us sass every time we turn around, right? People are butting heads with their loved ones, with their spouses, with their parents, with their siblings. Life is still happening, and it's not happening the way that we would prefer, but the things of life continue to happen. We still have to work. We still have to go to the grocery store. We still have to take care of the people who we usually take care of. We still have to earn money, all while we feel like, our brains are falling out because of this pandemic. So, like I said, I'm not keeping you guys very late tonight, but I do want to just give voice to that feeling of yuck that you're having on the inside. It's called languishing. It is a real thing. It is that space between productivity and sadness, right? I think that writer spoke about languishing being the middle sibling of happiness and depression. So if you find yourself in that middle ground, just know that it's real. How you're feeling is recognized. When people ask you how you're doing, please don't brush it off and say I'm fine. Tell them how you're really doing, and chances are it will give them permission to say, oh my goodness, me too, I'm glad I'm not alone. Last night I sat down on the floor in my bedroom and I opened up my stories because I felt like I needed to just get it out. And I spoke about how emotionally challenging I was finding it to be working every day and not be completely available to my children who are doing virtual school at home every day. Even though they know that their parents work, there's still this idea that they somehow have that because they're at home, then we are at home and we're available to them. And so they are recognizing that I'm not available. When I'm working, it's a no-go zone. And sometimes they need me and they can't access me. And yes, I have to get used to that, but it makes me uncomfortable, right? I want to be available to them when they want to connect with me, and I can't. And so last night I was just talking about how challenging I was finding that. And afterwards, after I put it out in my stories, I thought, maybe I shouldn't have put that out. Maybe I shouldn't have put that out there. Maybe it's too personal. But you would be surprised how many people were commenting in my DMs saying, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you shared because I'm feeling the same way and I didn't know how to state it and I didn't have the words for it. And so sometimes when we talk about how we are not feeling the greatest, it gives people the permission to admit the same for themselves. It gives people the permission to admit that they're not doing well either and that they don't have to put on this fake facade and pretend that they're fine. I encourage you, do not pretend that you're fine if you're not. If it's one thing we need in this world, sometimes it's a dose of reality, that everything is not always sunshine and roses. Instagram loves to put up, it's all about the pretty pictures. And yes, I put up pretty pictures too because I got some bomb pictures that I took last fall and I put them all over the place every chance I get. But I also try to balance it by coming on here and talking about mental health and real life. Because when people talk about mental health, they think it's often about, doctor's office, doctor's coat, lab coat, medication, people who have a prescribed, a diagnosed disorder. But the truth of the matter is that everyone has to mind or everyone has to manage their mental health. Just because your mental health isn't optimal, it doesn't mean you have a diagnosis, but it does mean that we have to pay attention to it. So my friends, I encourage you to pay attention to how you feel. Talk about how you feel. When we talk about how we feel, it gives words to what's going on with us. If you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to, journal. If you can't journal, call your doctor and book an appointment. But don't sit there with this awful, yucky feeling and not give voice to it, because that is not the healthiest thing to do. So that being said, I am going to mind my mind this evening and I'm going to sign off a couple minutes early, and I want you guys to take the best care of yourselves that you can, and I'll see you right here next Wednesday at 8 for more Afterthought. You guys take care.